Okay, the next brush that we're going to be using is the fan brush. It is one of my favorite brushes along with the big brush. It's the only one that I can think of that has a fancy name besides the detail brush. It gets its name because of the shape, and it's excellent for using when you're wanting a nice texture, some kind of stippling. It's wonderful for creating canopies and trees, bushes, things like that. So we are about to create the canopy for this tree, and I'm going to mix a tiny bit of black. Again, be careful with how much you use. You don't want a lot. And then I'm going to use the darker green. Now, the way I do this is I'm basically going to just tap the canvas. Now, when I tap it side to side, and I twist my paintbrush. I start from the outside of the canopy and work my way in. You do want to leave a little bit of the sky showing. Otherwise, what was the point of putting it all there? Now, they have different size fan brushes. You can get a small one, a big one, a fat one, a skinny one. I like to stick with the medium range unless I'm doing just a little bitty bush. You'll find that when you're using the fan brush that it ends up having it creates an arc, and you want to use that to your advantage because a lot of trees have that shape in them naturally. When I'm doing the bottom of the canopy, I'm just basically stippling it straight across, and then I'm just going to kind of fill in. Make sure that you don't put too much paint because then you don't get the stippling effect that you want. It ends up looking like a big blobby mess. Okay, and when you're creating a canopy, I've started off with black and dark green. You can really make trees any color you want to. Some trees are orange and reds and yellows and possibly some browns. A lot of trees are green in the summertime. So again, it's personal preference. What do you guys want to do? But make sure that you're not only sticking with one color. You actually want to mix colors with them. So I've started with black and dark green. I'm now going to go to the lighter green. If I wanted to make a really high contrast, I could also include some yellow. You want to just layer this right on top of what you already have, but you want to make sure that the darker colors still show through a little bit. This will give a little bit of depth to your tree. Again, be careful with how much paint you put on your paintbrush. And I'm still letting some of the sky show through, as well as some of the branches that I drew on here. You only have to stop when you're happy with what you have. Okay, the next paintbrushes we're going to use are these wedge-shaped paintbrushes, and they're really good for flowers, leaves. You can also use them for calligraphy painting. That means you can write with them. You can use several different sizes. You need to make sure that you pick the size that's going to fit whatever object. So I'm going to be using this little tiny one because I'm going to do some little flowers around the bottom of the tree. Now, it's got a wedge shape, and so the point of it is going to be white because that's the outside of the flower. The inside is going to be the darker color. I can pick whatever color I want for my flowers. I've got purple, pink to choose from, but for this one I'm going to use pink for the inside and white for the outside. It'll create a nice blending effect in the leaves. So I'm going to start at the top, and I'm going to go to the side, and I'm going to make like a little wiggle when I create this flower. Then I'm going to grab a little bit more paint. Again, white at the tip and pink on the inside. Always make sure that when you're painting your flower that the pink is on the inside of the brush. It's on the inside of the flower. Okay, again, you make a curve and a wiggle. You can do this 2, 3, well, you can do this 4 to 5 times to make a good flower. Okay, I left a little spot on the inside of the flower that I can add a different color if I wanted to, or I can just, I can fill it in with either the darker pink or even the white. In this case, I'll probably add a purple in just a minute. So I'm going to do this a couple of different times. I just created an open flower. I can also use the same technique for a closed flower, which I'm about to do right now. Okay, it's the same thing, you just kind of make an arc with a little wiggle on it. And then you overlap yourself. So I'm going to go curve over with a little bit of a wiggle, and then I'm going to kind of come back a little bit. Create as many flowers as you want that make you feel comfortable and happy with your painting. If I wanted to change colors, I could always do a couple of purple or a couple pink. I don't have to do them all the same color if I don't want to, but for this particular one, I'm going to make them all the same. I just made a half flower instead of a full flower on that one. I'm going to make one that's a little bit closed right over here. Okay. I'm going to clean off the paintbrush. I'm going to use the same technique when I create the leaves. Okay, for this one, I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to put the lighter green at the top, the darker green at the bottom, and I'm just going to wiggle. But instead of going from side to side, I'm going to wiggle going down. There, now each one of my flowers now has a leaf to go with it. You don't always have to do 2 leaves per flower, but I like to do that. Okay, we're going to use this little detail brush again. It's a little bit smaller than the one that I used at the very beginning because we're going to use it to create some really skinny vines. I'm going to stick with the same greens. So I've got a light green, and I'm not going to mix the greens. I'm just going to use them for different parts. So when I am painting with a little skinny paintbrush, I sometimes add water to it to make it smoother to paint. You have to watch out because if you add too much water, then it becomes watercolor as opposed to a thick acrylic paint and you can see through it. So that we want to avoid that as much as possible. But sometimes a little bit of water will make it smoother and easier so you don't end up with something weird going on with your paints. So I'm just going to make a couple little wiggles. So I've got some vines going up the tree. And then add a little bit of light green to it. Be careful you don't make them too thick, otherwise it'll look funny. And I'm going to add just a tiny bit of white to this green, just to make it stand out from the grass. Okay, this is the same paintbrush that I'm going to use to write my name on this as well. I like to write my name on the bottom right hand side. All artists have a different preference. Sometimes I'll write it on a section of the painting that goes up as opposed to just side to side. Again, personal preference. And then I'm going to sign it. And I'm going to sign mine in black. I tend to sign my stuff in either black or white. Again, it's personal preference. Right, and that is the way that you use several different brushes. I hope you've enjoyed my demonstration. Once again, my name is Rebecca Winters. Come and see me at Art in the Vine.